In the next 2 years, 2 new Planet games will be launching. In this video, I'd love to speculate with all of you about what these 2 Planet games could be. Are we anticipating a Planet Coaster 2? Or maybe even a Planet Zoo 2? Or perhaps something like Planet Dinosaurs, Planet Architect, Planet Transport, Planet City game, or maybe even a Planet Waterpark? If you're curious to hear more, then definitely stay tuned. Hey everyone, my name is the Lady Designer, and today we're diving into the world of speculation about Frontier Development's future Planet games as announced in their financial results of financial year 2023. Hit that like button if you enjoy these type of videos and feel more than welcome to join the discussion about the future of Frontier Developments in the comments down below. So without further talking, let's jump into it. Now we already spoke about a possibility of a Planet Coaster 2 releasing in financial year 25. If you didn't see that video yet, by the way, I highly recommend you to do so. But at that time, we didn't have the information we have now. So when the financial results of 2023 were released in September of this year, I began to have some doubts about the possibility of a Planet Coaster 2. I could see Planet Zoo's development concluding in the summer of 2024, and then Planet Coaster 2 taking over for support from Frontier starting in Q3 or Q4 of 2024 for the following 3 years or so. I mean, simply observing how they operate, shifting their internal employees from one game to another, it makes total sense to do this in phases as well. With the potential development of Jurassic World Evolution 2 ending either this year or maybe next year, it also makes sense to think that part of the employees from Jurassic World Evolution 2 and Planet Zoo are already working on their next Planet game, or Planet games that is. Now the thing that makes me doubt a potential Planet Coaster 2 at this point is the fact that in their financial report, they announced that there will be another Planet game launching approximately 1 year after the release of their first new Planet game. So let's say, for example, they launched their initial Planet game in Q4 of 2024, and then in Q4 of 2025 or Q1 in 2026, they plan to release another Planet game. The whole idea I had with their team being dedicated for a full 2 to 3 years of support for Planet Coaster 2 that could launch at the end of next year feels a little bit far-fetched now, because also, here's the thing. A very unfortunate event occurred in October of this year. Frontier Developments announced layoffs as part of a cost-cutting measure of up to 20%, which implies they plan to terminate up to 20% of their employees before Christmas. So according to their website, they currently employ over 900 people working at Frontier Developments, meaning around 200 people will probably lose their job before Christmas of this year. Now, let me say right away that whatever we discuss in this video and whatever is discussed in the comments is not more important than the fact that many people at Frontier right now who worked with like a lot of love and passion on the games we love to play over the past years will be losing their jobs in the coming weeks or have recently lost their jobs. So my thoughts really go out to each and every one of them because they are clearly not to blame for this unfortunate situation and this super sad event. Therefore, I really kindly ask you to keep any discussions in the comments respectful to all these people who are losing their jobs. Like, our feelings about the future game development of Frontier are by no means their fault, obviously. So anyways, I've been trying to put myself as a complete noob in the shoes of Frontier and think about what they would or should be doing game-wise. With a game like F1 Manager 2022 being pretty much a success with around 300,000 players on Steam, like, I'm sorry, I just don't have any console data, so I'm basing my information purely on Steam in this video. But I think it's fair enough to say that F1 Manager 2023, with only an estimate of around 40,000 players, didn't perform as well as they hoped. Also, it probably didn't help that this year isn't that exciting for F1 fans with Max Verstappen winning all the races. Like, I'm sorry guys, I'm a huge Max Verstappen fan myself, but even I am bored as hell this year, so I can imagine that might also be affecting the amount of sales of F1 Manager 2023. But okay, F1 Manager not being that much of a success, and not to mention, they also must have some kind of license or agreement with F1, meaning that not all revenue they earn with the game goes directly to Frontier, but part of it will go to the F1 brand as well. Now looking at Jurassic World Evolution 2, it pretty much works the same. So according to Steam data, Jurassic World Evolution 1 sold, say, above 2 million copies, while Jurassic World Evolution 2 most likely didn't even sell above 1 million copies. At least when it comes down to the Steam data. Again, I don't have any information on consoles, so this is the only data we can look at to get somewhat of an idea of how well a game is doing. So I think it's fair enough to say that Jurassic World Evolution 2 also didn't perform as well as the first game. And for this game, they also have a license and agreement with Universal, meaning that part of what they earn for this game is going to Universal, so not all revenue earned is going to Frontier itself, making it a lot harder to earn a good profit out of these games, I'm assuming, especially when things are just not going that well for a game in general. Now, Elite Dangerous is a game completely owned by Frontier. It has been their biggest game to date, but unfortunately, their highly anticipated Space Lax DLC, Elite Dangerous Odyssey, that launched in 2021, wasn't really what we can call a success when looking at the Steam reviews. And in addition, in March 2022, Frontier also announced to cease development for Elite Dangerous on consoles. People who own the console version can still play the game, but it won't be receiving any more big updates from now on, and there is no sign of them still actually releasing the Elite Dangerous Odyssey DLC on consoles. So I really doubt that is ever going to happen, since we're already 2 years after the official release on Steam. And I tried to find any information about future plans for the game on PC, but it doesn't look like anything is mentioned in the financial report about the game, so I really don't dare to say at this point. All I can say is that the game does obviously still earn them income from new players, but I can only assume that with the amount of bad reviews, at least on their latest DLC, and ceasing development on consoles, it is also costing them a lot of money. So I can only hope for Frontier that they are somehow able to turn this all around and make a good profit again with this game, and hopefully with future DLCs or something, and by obviously fixing the latest one. But at the moment, it really doesn't look that good when it comes down to Elite Dangerous, I'm afraid. And then we have Planet Coaster. Now, according to Steam, the game has around 2 to 3 million players most likely, and some very good reviews. So even though the game doesn't receive any paid DLCs anymore, the game can definitely be considered a huge success for Frontier Developments, especially considering it's their own IP, and thus all income goes directly to Frontier. Although the question is, how well did the game do on consoles? It's super unfortunate we don't know any numbers of console players. I do remember that when the game came out on consoles, there were a lot of restrictions when it came down to map size and the number of pieces you could place comparing to PC. Also, playing the game with a controller was quite hard from what I've heard. You had to have a lot of patience, to say the least. And I also think that the overall experience of the game was a lot better on newer generation consoles comparing to the older ones, at least when it came down to the performance of the game. So I think overall, especially looking at the newer generation consoles, the game was received pretty well, but it's really hard to tell how many creative management players play these type of games on consoles comparing to how many people play these type of games on PC. And looking at this graph from the financial report of 2022, you can tell there is a nice bump in player base and sales when the console game did came out. So yeah, I don't know. Are there any console players watching right now that love to play Planet Coaster on consoles or are dying to play a game like Planet Zoo on consoles? Do let me know in the comments down below. And then there is Planet Zoo, which after 2.5 years seems to be doing better already when it comes down to sales, comparing it both to Planet Coaster PC and console sales in their financial report of 2022. And the same obviously goes for Planet Zoo. All revenue earned with the game goes directly to Frontier Developments. With approximately 2 to 3 million owners of the game according to SteamDB, and with a continued pretty stable player base that mostly seem to return to the game, especially when a new DLC drops, I think it's fair enough to say that Planet Zoo still is one of their best ongoing owned IPs at this point. So now, back to the financial state of Frontier. If they are indeed going to let go of around 200 employees and need to make a plan for the future of the company, determining their focus to earn more revenue and eventually be able to grow again, it's definitely not a surprise that their focus might be shifting more to the Planet genre in general. Which now brings us back to their plans of launching 2 Planet games somewhere between summer 2024 and spring 2026. If everything goes according to plan, of course. But the plans are there. So now the question is, what could this be? How likely is it that they will launch Planet Coaster 2 as the first release of those 2 Planet games? Especially if they plan to support the games with paid DLCs over the 2 to 3 years after that. And what does that mean for the second Planet game that will be released a year or 2 after that? I guess it all really depends on how many people will continue to work at Frontier and how many people will be working on these Planet games. Now let me be honest here right away. I do not think that one of these 2 new Planet games will be Planet Zoo 2. It's definitely not going to happen this soon, while the development of Planet Zoo 1 is still ongoing. In fact, I cannot deny that this whole financial situation and the pretty stable player base of Planet Zoo now give me the feeling a little bit more that Frontier could actually extend the development of Planet Zoo. I mean, just think about it. If they are going to shift their focus more to Planet games, it will be so smart to bring back a team of people to Planet Zoo to finally work on these more highly requested expansion packs that will bring us the flying birds and full aquatic animals we have been screaming for so long. Now, it's honestly very easy for us to say, but for them, it might not be as clear as day. I mean, simply looking at the facts with how many people return to the game when a new pack launches, which is, at least according to SteamDB, always around 10k people playing at the same time. Just to clarify, this obviously is not the same as the number of people actually buying and owning a new DLC. And I honestly have just no idea what numbers we should think of people actually buying a new DLC every time a new pack launches. However, there's no clear evidence, apart from people from our communities screaming for birds and full aquatic animals, that there will indeed be a big group of new players jumping into the game when a pack like that launches, or that there will be a big chunk of people returning to the game with these big type of DLCs. It's all based on our feelings and the feedback we get from our community, but real data, unfortunately, we don't have. We don't know how many new players, because we don't hear about them. We don't see them in our comments. We don't see them in the polls that we do or the surveys that we do. So we don't know if there is still a big group of people out there that can be dragged into the game and will bring in more revenue to Frontier. But I can honestly imagine that at this point in time, with these financial struggles of the company, it's probably also not a risk they are willing to take. Or maybe they do. Gosh, I really hope so, obviously, but I really don't know how high the chances are that we are seeing these type of packs still drop for Planet Zoo. But I do feel like the chances might be higher at this point that Planet Zoo development may continue for a bit longer. For at least the time the game and the DLCs do sell well, it would be very silly actually to stop development of their best running IP as long as it earns them revenue and profit, right? So yeah, maybe due to this financial crisis they have going on, there is a bigger chance for Planet Zoo and continued support, but time will tell. But also, yeah, a Planet Coaster 2. I would absolutely love to see a sequel to the game, and I think it will be a great success looking at the interest in theme park game like this and the coverage of the genre globally in general. Not going too much into details about that anymore, as we already spoke about that in the other Planet Coaster 2 video in August of this year, but fact is, there were leaks in 2019 that they somewhat had plans for Planet Coaster 2 and were in talks with Disney. Obviously, after that, we have not heard anything anymore, so simply put, we don't know if Planet Coaster 2 was still on their tables after that. But again, looking at the amount of reviews and owners of the first game, I think it simply would be a super smart call to create a Planet Coaster 2 with better performance and graphics engine of Planet Zoo, including weather effects and such. I think Planet Coaster 2 would be super amazing already with those improvements. Now that could also be a thing, by the way. Just look at Ark Survival Evolved. Studio Wildcard actually decided to rebuild their big successor of 2017 with Unreal Engine 5 called Ark Survival Ascended, which launched a few weeks ago. The game does have some tweaks obviously, but for the most part it's the same game, the same gameplay, the same maps and animals, but all looking a lot more realistic and more beautiful on Unreal Engine 5 for an overall better experience of the game. Well, okay, performance of the game is an issue for some computers, computers, just like the problem we are seeing right now with City Skylines 2, but that's a different topic to talk about. We're not going to discuss that in this video. But what I'm trying to say with this is, what if Frontier Developments would just create the same game of Planet Coaster on the new and better performance engine of Planet Zoo, with the same gameplay, with hopefully some management improvements obviously, with better graphics, with weather, and then launching the same type of packs again for Planet Coaster 2, with the same type of rides and pieces, or maybe they change some stuff in rides, but say the base would be pretty much the same. It would probably cost them a lot less money compared to developing a complete new game from the ground up, and it would probably need fewer employees to make it happen. And I honestly don't know about you guys, but the only reason why I don't play Planet Coaster anymore is due to the performance of the game, and a little bit due to the graphics being used to Planet Zoo for over the past 4 years. But yeah, if they would decide to launch some kind of better performance revamp of the first game of Planet Coaster 2, I would absolutely throw all my money at them. Now, it could also potentially be that the first Planet game they will launch, probably at the end of next year or something, is a completely different Planet game. I mean, I can totally imagine that with the engine of Planet Zoo, they can open up the Planet franchise with different games that maybe don't take that much work compared to building a game from the ground up, and maybe also don't need as much support or that many paid DLCs in the long run. Now, all we know is that in 2018, Frontier Developments did secure quite a lot of Planet game names, and now with the recent news of Frontier planning 2 new Planet games in the coming years, it's definitely interesting to have another look at these other games, because as sure as we were that the next Planet game must be Planet Coaster 2, we now also know for sure that there is going to be at least one other Planet game on the table. And well, if Planet Coaster 2 won't be a thing, there are 2 new Planet games on the table even. Now, it probably doesn't mean much, but I was trying to see if any of these names had any registered websites or Twitter pages, and it actually looks like there are. So we have a Twitter account at Planet Architects, created in December 2018 with no profile picture, not following anyone, and only 1 follower. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is me. But other than that, they do not seem to have a registered website like planetarchitect.com or maybe even planetarchitectgame.com. Both domains are still free at this point. So then we have the Twitter account at Planet Transport. This account is private and was created in March of 2018, not following anyone and doesn't have any followers. The account is created at the same time that Frontier secured these names in 2018, so it's fair enough to say that this account is owned by Frontier Developments. Now, looking at the website planettransport.com, this domain seems to be already taken by a company in Denver, as well as the planettransportgame.com. However, this domain seems to be registered by a company called Mass Digital Limited in July of 2017. At first, I thought, not sure if this has anything to do with Frontier Developments until I checked the domain owner of planetcoaster.com and planetzoogame.com. And guess what? They were both registered by the same company, Mass Digital Limited, with planetcoaster.com still being on the same contact information, but the registrant contact information of Planet Zoo Game is now changed to Frontier Developments. Also next to that, there seems to be a Planet Transport account made on Instagram with no activity at all, but I wasn't able to find anything on Facebook or TikTok with this name so far. But chances are likely that the Instagram account is also owned by Frontier Developments at this point. So yeah, as of right now, it at least is fair enough to say that Planet Transport is being secured by Frontier as a potential game, but at this point, we obviously don't know if that also means that they are really planning to release a Planet Transport, so time will definitely tell. Now, another Twitter and Instagram account that I found was at Planet City Game, another account created in March 2018, being private, with not following anyone and no followers, and the domain of this game, planetcitygame.com, is also registered by the same Mass Digital Limited company in July of 2017. So at this point, we can also conclude that Frontier did secure this name for a potential Planet City game. But now, moving on to, for me, the most exciting IP of all of this that I found some information on is Planet Waterpark. Again, a Twitter and Instagram account secured in 2018 and a registered domain, planetwaterpark.com, registered in July 2017 by Mass Digital Limited. I think many people would be super excited for a Planet Waterpark game if that were to launch in the coming 2 years. But obviously I must say that Frontier securing all these names in 2017 and 2018 does not necessarily mean these will be the games that they are planning to launch, or that one of these games will. I mean, the chances are definitely likely, as they did secure the domain and social media accounts for these games, but it could always be that they change their minds or they simply have different plans for the Planet franchise. Now, in all honesty, looking at the EU IPO website and how late the Great War Western Front was added to this list while the game launched in March of this year, I don't know, maybe they have a different company name or something securing these names now first, because, well, people like me are way too curious to see what Frontier is doing with IP. So, I mean, it would reveal a lot if any new game they are planning to make will simply be registered here years in advance, right? I know that the Great War Western Front was a Frontier Foundry release, so that might also work differently, but I don't know. If I were Frontier Developments, I obviously wouldn't want people to see all my plans this much in advance, knowing that there are plenty of people out there keeping a close eye on this page. So if they could secure names in a different way, they probably are doing that right now, right? So yeah, a Planet Transport game, a Planet City game, a Planet Waterpark could definitely be on the table here, with still very high hopes, of course, for a Planet Coaster 2 game. By the way, the planetcoaster2.com domain is also registered by Frontier in February 2018. So that does leave us with another little hint that there might be a Planet Coaster 2 in the makings. Fingers crossed, of course, for this, guys. Now, even though I didn't find any evidence for it at this point, I do want to throw this idea out there as well. I was obviously just trying some Planet game name ideas on Twitter when I stumbled upon an account called @Planet Dinosaurs and noticed that this account was actually following Jurassic World Evolution 2 and one of the community managers of Frontier. As this was actually the beginning of my investigation and I didn't realize at first that all the other domains and accounts were private with no followers at all, it did get me pretty excited here until I noticed that this was just a fan account, let's call it that way. So it had nothing to do with Frontier. But seriously, this had me thinking. I have no idea if Frontier has a contract with Universal about this or not, that they may not be allowed to do this when developing Jurassic World Evolution games, but how incredibly exciting would it be if Frontier would actually be launching a Planet Zoo type of game, but with dinosaurs or prehistoric animals? I mean, it's really no rocket science here to know that this type of game would do incredibly well inside both the Planet niche and the dinosaur game niche. So yeah, maybe it wouldn't be called Planet Dinosaur, or maybe something like Planet Paleo or Planet Prehistoric Animals. Like, I don't know, I couldn't find anything interesting with these names registered by them, unfortunately. But oh boy, it will be a guaranteed success if they will be working on a game like this, wouldn't it? So yeah, a lot of information here to think about, I guess. But at the end of the day, we really have to wait and see what Frontier is able to do in the coming years and what they will have in store for us. Keeping our eyes open for potential Planet Transport, Planet City, Planet Waterparks, and Planet Coaster 2 game in the future is probably our best bet at this point. Now, I would obviously love to know your thoughts about these potential upcoming IPs in the comments down below. What are you hoping for? What makes you excited? What other Planet games do you think could be on the table here? I really would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Leave a like at this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And yeah, I just really do hope to see you guys all in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, guys!